Andrew Clennell is with me, and a very timely poll today in the newspaper. It seemed to give the Prime Minister a bit of a boost in the Parliament.
Certainly. What a gift for the government as the PM and Treasurer returned to question time after a difficult week last week. A Newspoll saying 2/3 of Australians support their super tax changes, including a majority of Liberal voters. This is similar sentiment to what we saw in Ermington, in the federal seat of Bennelong and the New South Wales state seat of Parramatta when I accompanied the Labor candidate Donna Davis on the doors there last week. Here is a Liberal voter, David, who welcomed the $3 million superannuation tax policy.
You spoke about federal Labor a minute ago. Yes. Are you talking about superannuation when you talk about?
Yes, superannuation. I think that very few people will have $3 million in their super fund, and then even if they have it, it's only over $3 million mark that they will be taxed at 30% when they actually do the contribution. So I don't think that it will hurt them that much.
So one group where it's a tighter race is among other voters, which includes votes for the independents as well as One Nation. But wasn't the PM milking this poll in question time earlier?
I do note that a majority of Australians, including a majority of Liberal voters, say that they agree with this change. We're a government for all Australians. They've been reduced for a government of 1/2%. I would have thought that the Shadow Treasurer might have asked a question about super. He's had a lot to say. He's had a lot to say about super. At last, a fair fight. At last, a fair fight. A fight between the Shadow Treasurer with the Shadow Treasurer. I think they've only got one. I think they've only got one now. Angus versus Angus. A true battle of the lightweights.
The opposition decided to press ahead with the super issue in both question times today, despite the poll. And they did get a new fact out. We'll get to that in a second. They figure that the broken promise needs to be attacked. Realistically, this is a line in the sand more than anything. The opposition needs a bigger broken promise to play with before the next election for this to make an impact. But there was an admission that they got from Jim Chalmers, the Treasurer, after Finance Minister Katie Gallagher admitted it in the Senate, that in 30 years' time, this super tax change, if it isn't indexed by a future government, would affect 1 in 10 people, not 1 in 200 people, which is the situation currently.
It took until 3:24 to break the pea-hearted silence of the Shadow Treasurer. 3:24, we had to sit here for an hour and a half to wait for a question from the Shadow Treasurer. In 2025, less than 0.5% of people will be impacted. By the time let me finish. Let me wait for it. Let me finish. By the beginning of next decade, it will be around 1%. In 30 years, 1 in 10 people will be impacted by it. This is the number that the Shadow Treasurer thinks is some kind of stunning insight.